Miss Laetitia Bonifait, kendisi Türkiye'deki durumun Avrupa Birliği'ndeki şeklini bize anlatacaklar. Kendisi Flofurgan Laboratuvarı Kuş ve Domuz Ürünleri Hijyen ve Kalitesi Biriminde Fransız Gıda, Çevre ve İş Sağlığı ve Güvenliği Ajansı içerisinde Salmonella Ulusal Referans Laboratuvarı Başkanı olarak görev yapmaktadır. Ve bize Avrupa Birliği'ndeki Ulusal Salmonella Kontrol Programı uygulamalarını sunacaklar kendileri. Please, you can start.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to thank the organizer of this meeting and particularly Dr. Erhan Sanger for this kind invitation to be here to talk about, to talk about the application of the National Salmonella Program in the European Union. This talk was about a little bit of the repetition for the argumentation in European Union, and also we see together what's happened in France, and I will introduce you the French reference laboratory where I work. As you already know, Salmonella is widespread in nature, and it's the part of the most important cause of foodborne bacterial gastroenteritis in developed countries, with more than 18,000 cases. It's mostly transmitted from animal to human with associated produce with poultry product, but we need to be careful also with swine product and cattle production. This transmission may occur through the environment, this close contact with thick animal, and also derivative products, such as meat, dairy product. This surveillance of the Salmonella in European Union was followed by the Directive 2003/99, and the monitoring of the data of animals for food and fresh of 8 zoonotic pathogens, such as Salmonella, must be reported. This monitoring shall take place at the stage of the food chain most appropriate for Salmonella, as we know that is the primary production level and the other stage of the food chain, that's at food and feed. There are many specific rules for the epidemiological investigation of this foodborne outbreak are laid down by these directives. Of this directive follow many regulations, but one of the most important is the Regulation 2160/2003. And that's what we are going to see together. This regulation ensures that proper and effective measures are taken to detect and control Salmonella at all relevant stages of production, as we say, but also in processing and distribution, and particularly at the primary level of production, including in feed, in order to reduce their prevalence and the risk for the public health. This regulation follows between many chapters, and that's what we are going to see. And one of the first chapters, and the most important, is the designation of a competent authority by the member states. Community targets are established for the regulation of the prevalence of zoonoses and zoonosic agents. Here you can see for Salmonella. If we look about the breeding flocks of Gallus gallus, the regulation shall cover the 5 most frequently Salmonella serovars, such as Salmonella enteritidis, Salmonella typhimurium, Salmonella virchow, Salmonella adar, and Salmonella infantis. Regarding the laying hens, the broiler and turkey, this community target shall cover Salmonella enteritidis and Salmonella typhimurium. But it's important to note that till now, when we talk about Salmonella typhimurium, we also include the monophasic variant of this form. And this serovar must be improved as is necessary, for example, for Salmonella Kentucky in breeding flocks. In order to apply this regulation, member states should have established national control program for Salmonella, with taking care of some geographic geographical distribution of the zoonosis, the financial implication for the producer, the feed, and the food business operator. And this national control program should be continuous and cover a period of at least 3 consecutive years. They must cover also at least the following chains at the food chain, as we see previously, such as feed production, primary production, and the processing and the preparation and food of animal origin. The approval by the national control programs by the Commission should take 2 months after a submission of this control program after a member state. You have 2 months to request some new question or some more information. Food and feed business operator should also establish control programs covering all stages of this production. And in case of intra-community trade or import for third country, flocks and herd of origin shall be tested before dispatching of any animals live. And the date of the result of the testing shall be included in health certificate. In order to help this surveillance, many implement acts have been added at the whole step of the food chain production. And you can find in the next slide some regulation added for the different level of this. We can find a new regulation established in 2019 regarding the food safety criterion for Listeria monocytogenes in fruit seed and the process hygiene criterion of food safety criterion for unpasteurized fruit and vegetable juice. This regulation makes an update about the method of detection of Salmonella with the new ISO standard. You also have the regulation of 2073 for microbiological criteria for foodstuff. In the regulation, we talk about the absence of Salmonella in food product within 10 or 25 grams. She also makes some criteria of hygiene at the processing plant. The most part with implementing act is the National Control Program for Poultry Production, with many regulations. You have some regulation about the testing and the sampling of the poultry, but also with the defined prevalence target for all type of production. You also have some regulation to talk about the use of antimicrobials, the import of live poultry or eggs, and the restriction about the prevalence of the Salmonella cerevisiae. Other monitoring of Salmonella could be voluntary control. As we see previously, in 2016, Campylobacteriosis, it was the more common reported zoonosis in Europe, followed by Salmonella, Yersiniosis, and staph infection. This is a great improve because in 2004, Salmonella was the first, with almost 200,000 cases reported in Europe, and in this year, there is only almost 95,000 cases. The global economic burden of the Salmonella case in Europe have been estimated by the European Food Safety Agency at almost 3 million per year. But nevertheless, the case is really underestimated. If we take the example of the France, there are almost 10,000 cases reported each year for Salmonella human. But taking in account of the sensitivity of the method of detection, or if the report of the disease when you are ill, you don't go necessarily to see a doctor, and the low prevalence, the Van Cotteren and collaborators estimate this case at almost 200,000 cases, so 10-fold more higher. As we see, when we look at the surveillance of Salmonella in the European Union, there is a significant decreasing tendency of the Salmonellosis between 2008 and 2016, with a stable tendency between 2012 and 2016. If we look what happens in some country, we can find that there is some highest notification rates of Salmonella in Czech Republic or Slovakia, with the lowest notification rate in Greece and Italy, for example. But we must to be careful because there is some country with an increase of notification rates, such as Estonia and Poland. And in 2006, Poland has many outbreaks that we will see later. The proportion of domestic and travel-associated cases varied depending on the country. There is no tendency, but in 2006 we can say that the highest proportion of domestic cases are found in Czech Republic, for example. And the highest proportion of travel-related cases are in Nordic countries such as Finland, Sweden. And the most frequently reported travel destinations associated with this case are Thailand, Turkey, and India. As you already see, there is a trend of itself for the confirmed salmonellosis case in European Union, and there is more cases during summer months. And in 2006, 7 member states was observed this trend. If we look at the most common serovirus for human infection, we only have the result for 71%, approximately 64,000 cases, instead of the 95,000 that we see later. And the top 5 of the most commonly reported serovirus in human was Salmonella enteritidis, Salmonella typhimurium, the monophasic Salmonella typhimurium, Salmonella infantis, and Salmonella Newport. If we look at Salmonella enteritidis, we see an increase of the infection, and it's more touch the laying hens and broiler. For Salmonella typhimurium, we have a decrease of the case of infection, which is most associated with pig and cattle product. The tendency was strength was stable for monophasic variant, and the same for infantis, but infantis was a health concern because of the multi-drink resistance of this bacteria. Now if we talk about the poultry production, prevent salmonella it just depends on one effect. No one single measure can be effective. We need to have many and to care about all the food production. We need to initiate effective biosecurity measures and implement monitoring program for salmonella. We need to make some stringent cleaning and disinfection between flocks and give appropriate times between the flocks. Use pest control system and important eliminate some stressor. The wash and the sanitize of transport crate have been also an important step because it's already demonstrated are often associated with contamination. The specific regulation follows the same rule that for human, and the European Union is a role-active model for salmonella and control in poultry. And they set their regulation to obtain the decreasing of incidence of salmonella in poultry flocks in order to decreasing the case of human salmonella enteritidis with the successful embed of the national control program. Our objective are to preventing the foodborne pathogen transmission via poultry products through control of the vertical and horizontal transmission in the production. Here are listed many regulations for the poultry production. Each type of production has been a specified regulation. You can find the target for the breeding flocks, the laying hens, broiler, and turkey. And in that, there is a lot of guide for help in the diminution of salmonella and how you can say. But who is the concerned population? In reality, the regulation applies from 250 individual gallus, say laying hen, broilers, and turkey. And what should the farmer do? He must to declare the establishment of this band and identify his livestock building with, for example, an INUAV number. It's a number for flocks. You have to manage the sampling schedule and sampling in which period. This is laid down by the regulation, and we already seen. But if you take the example of the laying hens, the phase of the production with sampling must cover the day-old chicks, the pullet before moving, and every 15 weeks during the laying phase. And for broilers, they need to check the birds before leaving to slaughter, and the result of the analysis must be known before the leave. What kind of sampling method? There is the official sampling and this voluntary sampling, also called auto-control sampling. The official sampling corresponds to the competent authority sample made by the European regulation, and it's performed by a health representative, such as a veterinarian or his delegate. And it's analyzed in approved laboratory by the Ministry of Agriculture. Approved laboratory must say that it's accredited laboratory for the detection of salmonella in primary production. There are also voluntary sampling, which could be made by the farming staff and analyzed in all laboratories. Just for a few ideas of the salmonella prevalence in poultry flocks, in 2016, salmonella was found in 1.77% of the breeding flocks. And it's all reporting country except Greece and Poland with the flocks prevalence of the target of maximum of 1%, which is great. Poland has a lot of outbreaks. That's the problem. If we look, the most commonly reported target serova in breeding flocks, it was in 2016 Salmonella enteritidis. It's on the left side on the slide. And it's followed by Salmonella typhimurium. But if you look well, you see that Salmonella typhimurium is less prevalent, but it's more present in all countries. In poultry flocks and laying hens, the prevalence of Salmonella was found of 3.71% of the adult laying hens, compared to 2.67% in 2015. There is an impressive increase, which we worried for the European Union. And if we look, in Poland, there is a big increase due to the outbreak. Poland was contaminated about approximately 7% of its flocks. And the most commonly reported target serval was Salmonella enteritidis in this case. For broilers, the prevalence was to 2.6%, and there is no difference between Salmonella typhimurium and Salmonella enteritidis in this type of flocks. Now, if we focus on the French poultry code production, the directive 2003/99 give the objective to obtain. Then the regulation said us how to follow. And then in each country, we have specific law to describe how we can do. And here I just presented the French law of the poultry production. And what is the way to proceed? The farmer has to declare the establishment of these flocks to the French authority, which in turn mandated a veterinarian to carry out the official sampling. Then the official laboratory analyzed the sample and report the result to the French authority if there are some salmonella. And in case of a suspicion in breeding flocks, for example, when the official laboratory found the detection of salmonella, such as Salmonella enteritidis or typhimurium, for example, he had to report to the authority, which put the flocks through prefectural arrest and mandate some person to make the epidemiological investigation in order to try to understand the origin of the contamination. He ordered also an ante-mortem visit of the veterinarian to better understand what's happened. There are some herd measures, and it imposed the cleaning of disinfection and the effectiveness of this cleaning must be followed. The strain found by the official laboratory was sent to the French National Reference Laboratory. So now it's time to talk about this National Reference Laboratory for Salmonella. But before to introduce the French National Reference Laboratory, we have to talk about the European Union Reference Laboratory. It's located at the National Institution for Public Health and the Environment inside the Laboratory for Zoonosis and Environmental Microbiology in Bilthoven to the Netherlands. This European Union reference laboratory coordinates all reference in all member state countries. The French National Reference Laboratory was nominated by the French Ministry of Agriculture, and it's now carried by the French Agency for Food, Environmental and Occupation, Health and Safety. There are many missions for the French National Reference Laboratory of Salmonella. We had the first one, the national representative of the European Reference Laboratory, and we had to give some daily support and advice to the official French lab network. We contribute to the Salmonella surveillance program and perform confirmatory testing and serotyping of Salmonella strain, if necessary. We maintain the collection of Salmonella isolate and the database in the release data, and we organize national meetings with the official laboratory. We also coordinate and perform national inter-laboratory comparison essay, and we explain what is that later. And we think it's really important to maintain strange collaboration with all reference centers in France. So with the National Reference Center for Salmonella and for the French Institute for Public Health Surveillance. The Salmonella detection must be laid by the standard NF and ISO 6579 Part 1 for the detection, but all countries are able to make a own standard, and in France this regulation was divided in 3 parts, and you have the name of the standard right in here. Regarding the identification and the enumeration of Salmonella, it's the Part 2 and the Part 3 of the 6579 ISO standard. And still, until now, the detection of Salmonella was made by serotyping and the confirmation with the serotyping with the scheme of Kaufmann-Watt-Lumino. It's able to make an enumeration of Salmonella with a miniaturized method with the most probable number technique. The French National Reference Laboratory, regarding the regulation, must to verify the technical performance of the official laboratory using inter-laboratory comparison essay. It consists to register all the French laboratory accredited by the French authority, to send to them some sample contaminated or not by Salmonella, to analyze the result, and interpret and have the anonymity to give them the result. The result was also given to the French authority for the conservation of the agreement. Inside the French National Laboratory, there are 2 inter-laboratory comparison essays have been organized, the detection in the sample of the primary production, but also in food. And in the same way, the French National Reference Laboratory participates to the inter-laboratory comparison essay organized by the European Reference Laboratory. The monitoring, as we see previously, of Salmonella in poultry flocks laid down by the regulation 2116 from 2003. And it keeps all Salmonella strains from positive control, origin from different, such as laying hens, broilers, or at different steps, production, multiplication, and different source samples, some swab, book swab. They all are isolated by the standard ISO, like we just see, or by the French rules. And they all send in culture agar to the French National Reference Laboratory. We are appointed to keep all strains between almost at least 2 years. And this allows the selection of the follow-up of the Salmonella antibiotic resistance. At this time, each strain are sent with a cover note for helping to the traceability and to increase the Salmonella strain collection. But we tend to evolve and have a Acteolab, which will be a new software, a web software, for a monitoring of all Salmonella of non-human origin. This new software originates for the need to object to update the information system and for better coordination between the Salmonella network. It can be produced health indicator for the surveillance purpose directly integrated by the laboratory themselves. If we look at the French Salmonella strain connection, it can give us the trend of the Salmonella infection in poultry flocks in France. And just to give you an idea of the number of strains that we received each year, we have almost 2,000 strains of Salmonella in our collection. This collection could led us to find that Salmonella typhimurium and Salmonella enteritidis are still the most commonly serovar found in the poultry flocks in France. It's in red and orange in the graph. But most important, we can find the emergence of new serovar in the poultry production. And as we see here, we have the emergence of Salmonella Seftenberg and Salmonella Montevideo in France. Also, surprisingly, in 2017, we see for the first time the emergence of Salmonella Conde in the French poultry production. It is the first time which it appears a part of the 10 most prevalent serovar in these poultry flocks. If we look at the 5 regulated serovar, such as we say, Enteritidis, Typhimurium, Adar, Infantis, and Virchow, in the poultry flocks during the year, that we can observe that there is an increase since 2014, and the percentage of these 5 regulated serovar can be almost 25% of all the poultry infection in France. And this increase can be observed since 2014 if we look the separately serovar by an associated infection with Salmonella enteritidis in poultry flocks. Facing this increase of Salmonella enteritidis on poultry flocks, the French authorities mandated the French National Reference Laboratory to make several epidemiological investigations in order to characterize the strain and to establish a relationship between the isolate and in order to find, if we can, the origin of this contamination. That's why it's really important to have a collection strain inside the National Reference Laboratory, because after this demand, we can select and type the strain to be involved. And what we see to better understand this contamination, in the first time, we use 300 Salmonella enteritidis strain, and we collect and analyze by pulsified gel electrophoresis, PFGE, with one restriction enzyme, which is XB1. And we see the result with dendrogram on your right of the Salmonella enteritidis to see what's happened. And we find some cluster isolate and different isolate. And if we look more in details, the result, we can see for Salmonella enteritidis in the first graph on the top that there is a strain which be able to circulate through the ear and through the department with a probably origin of contamination from the department 1. As you can see, there is only one department contaminated in 2008, and there is a propagation of the contamination after the year. And if we look what's happened in this department, know that it's a problem. All types of production are infected in this department, so there is a spread and the circulation of this strain. We try to better understand and to find more details to analyze the origin of the contamination. The second genotyping can be highlighted, the associated of this isolate between the different stages of the production inside the type of production. And also, we can make a possible epidemiological link between feed and animals. just to conclude, for the part of the National Reference Laboratory, just to be sure that the strain collection of the French National Reference is an important tool to follow up the regulated serovar and for the detection of emergent serovars in order to help the control system to real situation. This investigation revealed the importance of Salmonella enteritidis infection between the increase since 2014, and we found that there is a real persistence over the year of the strain, and it also persists across the poultry production and inside the production. And we can find epidemiological link between feed, but also with transport. Sometimes it's the transport which spread the contamination. So this result highlights the need to reinforce sanitary barrier and the corrective measure in order to eradicate the contamination. I just want to thank the French NRL of Salmonella team, which has Louise Boger and Sandra Ruxel, and the unit where I work, and with the director, which is Marianne Chemali. I wish to thank you for your attention and say, teşekkürler.
Evet, teşekkür ediyoruz.